Hey guys, Brad Danger here, and Dodge just built a Charger that can beat a Hellcat to 60 miles an hour. 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, faster than the car everybody worshipped for the last 10 years. Sounds like a win, right? Wrong, because the second you point these two cars at a quarter-mile strip and let them actually race, the new one loses every single time. And I'm going to show you exactly how Dodge cooked the numbers to make this headline happen and why the comment section is dragging this car through the mud anyway. This is the new 2027 Dodge Charger Super B Launch Edition, and I need you to understand something before we get any further. This is not the EV. Dodge already tried selling you an electric Charger with fake gear shifts and a fart cannon exhaust noise, and you told them very loudly in every comment section on the internet to shove it. So Dodge quietly walked it back and brought in a gas engine, except it's not a Hemi. It's not even a V8. It's a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-six, the same Hurricane engine that's been sitting under Ram and Jeep hoods for a couple years now, except this time Dodge bolted on a pair of Garrett turbos the size of dinner plates, 56mm turbos running 30 psi of boost with a reworked exhaust and new software calibration. The result is 600 horsepower and 531 foot-pounds of torque. For context, the last Super B, the 2023 one, made 485 horses. So Dodge somehow found an extra 115 horsepower in 4 years without adding a single cylinder. That works out to 200 horsepower per liter, which is more than double what the Hellcat V8 was doing. The Hellcat made 707 horsepower out of a 6.2 liter or 114 horsepower per liter. That little 6 is squeezing out almost double that per liter, and that should scare the hell out of anybody who owns one of these long term. There is no such thing as a free lunch with boost. You want power like this out of a smaller engine, you get it from pressure, heat, and stress, and none of those things are free. Okay guys, and I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but I will tell you that it's bigger than the last one. It's moving faster, and you're going to love it. We already gave one winner his pick of a Fast and Furious Supra or a Shelby GT350. He took the Shelby. Another winner took home a flame-spitting R35 GTR. Another walked with 100 grand cash. Yes, real winners, real faces, no rigged wheels, no follow 12 influencers nonsense. This next giveaway is the best one yet. Links pinned below. Tap it, sign up, go look at the past winners and what they walked away with. It's closer than you think. All right, back to the show. So here's the numbers that got Dodge a headline. 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. The 2015 Hellcat did it in 3.7. So for the first time ever, a non-Hellcat Charger is quicker to the highway speed than the car that built this entire nameplate reputation. 1/10 of a second quicker. That's the whole flex. That's the entire marketing pitch in one number. Now, keep the tap running past 60, quarter mile. The Hellcat in 2015 ran 11 flat. The brand new turbocharged 600 horsepower Super B runs in 11.8, 0.8 of a second slower over a quarter mile, which in drag racing terms is an eternity. So Dodge built a car that wins the sprint and loses the race, and then wrote a headline about the sprint. That's not an accident. That's marketing department picking the one stat where they can come out on top and burying the one where they get smoked. So why did this happen? Well, Jenny Craig, wait. The thing is enormous. We're talking about a car pushing 5,000 pounds. I don't care about how many turbos you strap onto an engine. Physics does not negotiate. You can launch a heavy car off the line just fine with enough torque and the right launch control, but the second the quarter mile stretches out, mass just eats your momentum alive. Imagine how fast this thing would actually be if it didn't weigh as much as a small pickup truck. And honestly, I feel like the wheels look kind of small on this car, and it's not because the wheels are small. It's because the body around it is 5,000 pound rectangle, high seating position, massive wheelbase, a shape with basically zero visual tension to it. None of that adds up to something that's actually fun to throw around in a corner, no matter how many turbos are bolted to the front of it. And speaking of bolting turbos to this thing, this is where I start losing patience with the whole approach. The problem was never the 6-cylinder formula on its own. Plenty of great cars run 6s. Ever heard of Porsches or the B58? And I really don't feel like anybody's that mad this thing skips 8 cylinders just because 8 is better number. The problem is complexity. You take a smaller displacement engine and force it to do a big engine's job by cranking boost pressure to levels that used to only exist in tuner garage voiding warranties. And you're adding plumbing and intercoolers, wastegates, boost controllers, a dozen new failure points a naturally aspirated V8 never had to deal with. Complexity is what makes a car unreliable. Complexity is what makes a car expensive to fix when it's out of warranty. And complexity is exactly what turns an eager young owner into somebody standing in their driveway at 11 at night Googling boost leak symptoms. You've built a car that's just as heavy, except instead of an off-roader's simple, torquey, forgiving engine, you've given it a stressed, high-strung little 6 working twice as hard per liter as the supercharged monster it's replacing. And before anybody in the comments tries to tell me 600 horsepower is some kind of miracle number for a car this size, let's be real about where the bar actually sits right now. A mid-tier Tesla Plaid clears 1,000 horsepower. The Mercedes-AMG GT63 EV clears 1,000 horsepower. Even a Mustang Mach-E GT Performance, a car nobody cross-shops against a muscle car, will run into the high 4s to 60 and do it on electricity that costs you about 18 bucks to fully charge. For a gas engine, 600 horsepower still turns heads. For anything wearing a battery pack these days, it's basically a Tuesday. Dodge isn't just racing the Hellcat's ghost here, it's racing an entire EV segment that laughs at 600 horsepower before breakfast, and that context matters when you're deciding whether this number is actually impressive or just impressive for gasoline. Now, let's talk about the elephant that isn't in the room, the V8. Mopar people did not want a Turbo 6. They wanted a Hemi badly, publicly, for years. And here's the part that actually makes me laugh. Stellantis brought the Hemi back for the Ram trucks. Full 5.7 liter Hemi back in production right now, with the Charger sitting here running a straight 6 with a turbo strapped to each side of it like some kind of consolation prize. Why? Because the Ram platform already had a V8 sitting in it. They just had to flip the switch back on. The Charger is an all-new platform built from the ground up around this 6-cylinder architecture, and shoving a V8 back into it means re-engineering the entire front end. And that's not cheap, and it's not fast. So don't hold your breath. Somewhere out there, there's a dedicated Charger drag car running a Hemi, but that thing is about as related to what you actually can buy off a dealer lot as a NASCAR stock car is related to your neighbor's Camry. It looks the part on a banner, it's a different animal entirely. All right, I will give Dodge some credit here because it's not all bad. The chassis work on this thing is legit. They boosted cooling capacity in the radiator circuit by more than 50% with a redesigned front end that actually breathes. New grille, bigger intakes, extra radiators tucked behind them. Brakes got a real big upgrade too. 6-piston Brembo calipers up front, 4-piston in the rear, 16-inch rotors all 4 corners, pads that are 27% bigger than before, 20 by 11 inch wheels wrapped in Goodyear's actual Supercar 3 tire, the real sticky stuff, not some eco compound they slapped on to hit fuel economy numbers, adaptive dampers, 12% stiffer front springs, 6% stiffer in the rear, a rear stabilizer bar that's 20% stiffer, reworked front tension links and bushings so that the front end doesn't feel like it's wearing 3 sweaters when you turn in. There's a dedicated rear wheel drive mode that fully disconnects the all-wheel drive system, basically lifted straight from BMW M3's playbook, plus track mode, drag mode, link mode, launch control, and torque reserve function that lets you do repeated hard launches without the drivetrain begging for mercy. It's also the first Charger in its 6-pack lineup to get a driver experience recorder, a forward-facing camera synced to onboard data so that you can pull up your own lap footage with the numbers layered right on top of it. I mean, that's useful stuff, real modern equipment. And I'm not going to pretend that Dodge phoned in the engineering here, but here is my honest problem with the whole package. It feels like Dodge took a rock and instead of finding a diamond underneath it somewhere, they just polished the rock really, really well. And I respect that they didn't just abandon this platform after the EV launch face-planted this hard. That takes some real backbone. But respect isn't the same thing as excitement. This car is objectively better than the version that came before it in almost every single measurable way, and it still isn't the Charger anybody actually asked for. It's a half measure dressed up as an evolution. The people who spent years online demanding Dodge bring back real muscle car values were never actually on the fence about buying one of these. They wanted the old formula fixed, not a new formula apologized for. And can we talk about its looks? Because the comment section had thought. Because I bet the comment section is going to have some thoughts, and, well, so do I. That front fascia is rough. The full width LED light bar was already dividing people, and somehow they made the update worse. The curves are there, the lines are there, and then you just see this front end and it just falls apart. This car just feels kind of generic to me, and I don't think that's a coincidence, because we're officially into 3 years deep into every single new car on the road looking like it came out of the same design studio regardless of badge on the hood. On top of that, the launch edition only comes in 2 colors right now. There's Sucker Punch. I love what Dodge names cars. A bright yellow-green that looks like it was named by a marketing team that skipped lunch, and Diamond Black for anyone who wants the performance without announcing it to the whole neighborhood. Inside you get embroidered headrests, contrast stitching, a leather performance steering wheel, and a new gauge cluster. Nice touches, none of it's changing what's happening under the hood, and none of it is going to convince a Hemi guy to sign the paperwork. I've also been hearing about people asking Dodge to fix the ride height next and drop in a solid-state battery down the line. Like that's going to fix the identity crisis this car is having. It won't. A better battery doesn't give this thing a soul, and neither does another inch of ride height. The problem was never the spec sheet. The problem is that Dodge keeps trying to engineer its way out of a branding problem, and you cannot torque vector your way into making people forget what a Hemi sounds like. So let's close this out with the business side, because this is where Dodge's whole strategy gets a little cynical for my taste. It's called the Launch Edition, which is corporate speak for we're going to sell you the fancy first batch at a premium, then quietly sell you a slightly less special version once the hype dies down. Limited edition in practice means they stop building them the second that they run out of whatever exclusive parts bins they pulled this trim from. It's not about exclusivity, it's about controlling headlines so that you never see a lot full of unsold Chargers hitting the news again, which, let's be honest, already happened once with the EV. Dodge hasn't announced a price yet. They're saving that for later this year. But if you want my honest prediction, we're looking at somewhere north of $80,000 once this thing is fully loaded, for a car built around a turbocharged 6-cylinder wearing a Hemi legacy paint job. That's a hard sell for the exact buyer this thing needs to convince. So here's where I land on the Super B. 600 horsepower, quicker to 60 than a legendary Hellcat, genuinely serious suspension and brake upgrades, a chassis Dodge clearly put real effort into, and somehow none of that adds up to a car anybody actually is excited about, because the two things this car needed most, an engine with soul and a face people don't hate, are exactly the two things that this thing is missing. Dodge fixed the spreadsheet, they didn't fix the car. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and remember to go to winthisIdealCar.com to get entered to win your dream car plus cash. Like, subscribe so we hit 2 mil by the end of the year. Check out some of these Ideal vids. I'm Brad Danger, this is Ideal, and promise me one thing, keep living the Ideal lifestyle.